Inspired talks of Swamiji, Pranam Mantra. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suray Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapaharine. The previous talk was on July 26th, 1895, the Thousand Island Park. And Swamiji was talking from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and today's talk, this is on Saturday, July 27, 1895. This is from Kathopanishad. To remind you, what Swamiji used to talk to them, Swamiji was talking freely. Not that he was following any book and giving explanations. And Ms Waldo, she was making notes. Naturally, she was making notes. No, she used to make notes after the class. It was not possible for Miss Waldo to retain everything. That's natural because it was an alien subject for an American. She had some exposure, but nothing like that. And Swamiji, as you can imagine, those of you who have studied a bit of Swami, you know that he could go really deep. He could really soar very high. So here in this talk, Swamiji was talking about Kathopanishad, and he definitely had some verses from Kathopanishad on his mind when he was speaking. But as you can expect from Swamiji, and for that matter, as anyone can expect from Swamiji, he was giving the gist of those mantras, those verses. In between, he was telling things which are unimaginable. I keep telling that anyone who is interested in spirituality should study Inspired Talks at least once, because the way Gita is extremely subtle, profound, and all comprehensive. Exactly like that, Inspired Talks is profound, subtle, and all inclusive. And dear listeners, believe me, I've been reading Inspired Talks for a long time now. But even now, when I read a page, I am left dumbstruck. That when you are explaining a book, you are explaining a book. But Swamiji, being Swamiji, he was a sage, he was a rishi. He gives us extraordinary things every now and then. Swamiji begins with the mantra Ashcharyo Vakta Kushlosya Labdha. Learn not the truth of self except from one who has realized it. This we discussed in the previous talk. If you want to know about Atman, you have to go to a person who has realized it. Now, question may arise in your mind that okay, Mr. Swami Samarpanananda, so you are talking about this. Have you realized it? No, I have not. And why I am talking? No, I am not talking about Atman. I'm explaining Inspired Talks of Swami Vivekananda. That's something I can do. When I explain Kathopanishad, and that is there on the YouTube, you can look for it on in the playlist, both in English and Bengali. I was explaining Kathopanishad. Now, if there is someone who is really a learner of Kathopanishad, uh, a learner of Kathopanishad, that person may come to me. But person who wants to know self, one who wants spiritual realization, will not come to me. I know of many persons um, who kind of have met me and they started talking about spiritual things, and I always tell them, look, I don't have any spiritual realization, no. So how can I guide? I can tell you the academic things, I can tell you the technical things. But If you expect me to be a knower of Atman, a knower of God, no, I'm not. If you really want Atman, you will have to go find somebody. And that's what our Kathopanishad says. Gita also says. Gita is highly influenced by Kathopanishad. In all others, it's mere talk about Atman. When I am explaining Kathopanishad, it's not mere talk. There we are discussing a subject. And this realization is beyond virtue and vice, beyond future and past, beyond all the pairs of opposite. Because whenever you think of pair, it belongs to the realm of mind. Self is beyond mind. Rather, mind belongs to the self, to the lower self. The stainless one sees the self and an eternal calms in the soul. These are the verses from Kathopanishad. If you are interested, you can listen to those talks. Talking, arguing, and reading books, the highest flights of the intellect, the Vedas themselves, all these cannot give knowledge of the self. Because every action has a result. Unfortunately, both action and result belong to the realm of mind. So even if you are studying the Vedas, if you are studying Bible or any other spiritual book, and if you expect that by reading, I mean, you're religiously holding on to that, because study of holy scriptures is considered to be a very important religious practice. Will it lead you to self realization? No, it will not. Self realization will come to you if your mind is totally pure, if your mind is totally detached. Now, this is what will be discussed now. You have to keep in mind that you always need to rise above duality. Now, this is something we cannot do. It's very difficult for us to rise above duality. And then Swamiji is explaining the verse Chaya tapo brahmavido vadanti. This is a very interesting verse in the Kathopanishad, which we find in, say, Mundaka Upanishad also, but as two different birds. Sri Ramakrishna also used to talk about kind of two personalities there. Not really, personality is not the right word. Two entities. He used to say God and his devotee. Kathopanishad talks about light and shadow. Swamiji says God's soul and the man's soul. Actually, these are one and the same. There is no difference. Yet, these two appear different. The sages know that the latter is but the shadow, that the former is the only real sun. Something like when we say shadow, don't think of shadow that you see of yourself. Think more as reflection. The chaya tapo, literal translation would be sun and its shadow, light and shadow. But in the Upanishad, when they use the word chaya, they mean reflection. When there is sun and there's it's a reflection, maybe in a mirror or in some pot of water, these two suns appear different. But actually, there is only one sun. Just like that, we feel as if there are two God, two souls, one above, another inside. While it is true, there is no doubt about it, but the inner one is a mere reflection of the other one. If the reflecting surface is purified, cleansed, you will then realize that there are no two suns. Now, just to just to explain the idea. In the Upanishads and in other scriptures, we find mention of sun and the reflection. We also find mention of seeing things through a screen, seeing things through a glass. There are different examples used because these things really cannot be explained through examples and metaphors. Either you know it or you don't know it. And you know it only when you have realized it. And once you realize it, you become one with it. It's not knowing something like, knowing this pen. No, it's not like that. You are that. There is no other God. There is no other God than you. And you become one with it. So when we were talking Kathopanishad, when we were explaining Kathopanishad, it's so soothing, so wonderful. But when you read Swamiji explaining Kathopanishad, it's simply divine. Kathopanishad itself is divine, but when we study, when we explain, it seems so soothing, so beautiful. But coming from Swamiji, it becomes divine. And then he says, Swamiji explains the idea of the universe, which is not there in the Kathopanishad. However, in Kathopanishad, we find mention of these things in a completely different way. And Swamiji is as if making a transference. This is my coinage. Transference means when you take certain ideas from someone and place it on somebody. This is actually from psychology, where supposing there is someone who lost his or her father pretty early, and much later he or she meets someone who has some qualities of father. Instantly you start seeing that person as father. This is known as transference. And there can be cultural transference where you take the essentials of something, place it in an entirely different context. Now, what we find in case of Swamiji is this cultural and spiritual transference. Swamiji takes the ideas from Kathopanishad, keeps the essence, changes the outer cover, and presents before us. For example, the mantra, the verse, Uttishtata Jagrat Prapya Varani Bodhat. Swamiji makes a transfer and says, arise awake and stop not till the goal is reached. Now, that's not what Kathopanishad says. What Swamiji is saying is actually from Kathopanishad, and yet it's a new statement. What Swamiji is explaining here, unless we join the mind with the senses, we get no report from eyes, nose, ears, etc. Now, before I continue with it, let me tell you in brief what exactly Swamiji is saying and what is the Vedantic worldview. This is very important for us to understand. Those of you who are more keen to know about this, you can listen to Mandukya Karika talk, Mandukya Upanishad talks. These things have been discussed there also. We know that we have a mind. Now, that's something we all know. Now, then, when this mind joins itself with the senses, not the sense organs, eyes, ears, etc. The senses are in the brain itself. These are brain centers. The inputs that we get through our senses and the action that we want to carry out through our organs of action, 5 organs of action, and the pleasure and pain, whatever we derive from those, they are all regulated by centers of senses in the brain. Well, neurologists, they have confirmed it repeatedly. And when input from a particular sense is missing, that area is taken over by activities of the other senses. And that's why you'll find that those who are blind, either born blind or grown blind, their sense of hearing, their sense of touch increases manifold. Swamiji says they can walk effortlessly during a fog. And not only that, must have seen, naturally, I've seen many blind people, somewhere my college mates, and they were so keen, so sharp. Of course, each one of you must have experienced it. No use repeating. Your senses become extremely acute. Like, for example, you are searching for something in dark. You will see that you might have noted, at least I do it. I close my eyes when I'm in complete darkness and I'm searching for something. I close my eyes. Now, whether you close your eyes or you keep your eyes open, how does it matter? It matters. It helps you focus. That's why during meditation, when people meditate, they shut their eyes, because the input that is coming from the external world through the eyes disturbs the mind. And that disturbance is stopped. And then you will see that your ears become pretty conscious. You start hearing things which you usually do not hear. You try it. However, when a particular sense is permanently damaged, then that area is permanently taken over by other senses. There's a book by V.S. Ramchandran, Phantoms in the Limb. It's such an interesting reading. Describes so beautifully things that happen when a person loses a limb. Because the requirement of the sense centers, sense centers in the brain, is no more required. So it's taken over by other senses. Now that creates extremely strange situation. Now, what is this world? We are so sure of this world. Scientists are so sure of this world. People with limited knowledge, they are so sure of the world. And people with medium intellect, they keep on swearing in the name of science and confirming that this world is the only reality. And yet, what is this world? Kathopanishad says, if you analyze, you will also see, and you can have a go at it through our Mandukya Upanishad talks. When mind joins itself with the senses, this is the world. When you shut down your senses, say, as when you fall asleep or you become unconscious, the world ceases to exist for you. Anything can be done with your body, but your body will not react because mind is not connected with the senses. And mind without senses, when mind is working without senses under normal conditions for a normal person, for a person like us, this creates the dream world. There is this external world and there is that internal world. Lots of inputs that have come from the external world through our senses to our mind. Based on that, and remaining mind creates its own world, because you see things in dreams which you could have never imagined. And those who have lucid dreams, those who can imagine very well, and uh, they can see lots of things, imaginary things, real things, and lots of mingling of the external world and the inner world. But what Swamiji says here is, after this, these two are well known. But third thing that Swamiji says, if you can somehow get rid of this link between mind and the senses at will, mind it at will, as great yogis can do. I cannot do, as great yogis can do. Then, not only that, you get detached from the senses, you get detached completely from the body, as happens in the unconscious state. But that is what happens when a person dies. When a person dies, that person's mind remains alive. Mind cannot die. But he is disassociated from his body. It's something like you can think of your dream world. Think of your dream world. What do you see in the dream? Whatever the present day neurologists, whatever the present day psychologists and philosophers and scientists may say, it's a fact that you see things in dreams which you have never experienced in real life. A few things you have seen, not everything. Why it happens? Because mind is then freed from the burden of the senses. Because senses are forcing the mind to take in only what it is supplying. Mind is a slave to the senses. It's a fact. Mind is a slave to the senses. Whatever the slave says, mind is, when connected with sense, is more like a henpecked husband. I don't know whether it's politically correct to use this expression, but when we were students, it was a very common term, henpecked husband. It will do exactly what it is asked. And like a henpecked husband, when out of his home, going to the office, he might be a superintendent and a big boss. And you can see it's his power. Mind, when freed from the senses, becomes extremely powerful. And when it gets out of the body too, the mind is perceiving the same world. For example, when you sleep, you are still in the same world. And yet everything changes. Just like that, when you die, everything changes. And yet you are at the same place. Don't go anywhere. Your mind doesn't go anywhere. This very world, there's an explanation from Swamiji. This very world, what you are experiencing through the senses, will now be experienced without the medium of the body, without the medium of your senses, but through the mind directly. Consequently, you will be seeing the heaven and the hell here only. Depending on how your sanskaras have been, depending on how your impressions have been, depending on what kind of mind you have, depending on what you have done in this life and in the previous lives, these very things, this world, this pen, this microphone, these things will continue to be there, and yet these will appear as different. Why? Because the senses are not there. Or you have different kind of senses. Now you might have heard that ghosts can sometimes do strange things. Sometimes. Personally, I never had any encounter. I know of people who had encounters, and so similarly the gods. In Christian traditions, they are known as angels. But the concept of gods in the Indian tradition is slightly different. The gods are something like mask on the infinite. They can come and act in front of you. But even they will be seeing this world differently from what we see. A ghost, if he has the memory of this world, will see, he will be totally confused because his memory will say it should be like this, And yet his mind will be giving a completely different kind of information. And once your mind becomes totally pure, totally detached, completely free of all the impressions that there are, your mind becomes pure. It then becomes one with Atman. Pure mind is Atman. So this mind, when it is filled with sanskaras, still connected with the body, can act variously. It works in the waking state, it works in the dream state, it works in the deep sleep state. And once it is released from the body, it perceives the same thing differently, the way you perceive things differently in a dream state. But once your sanskaras are clean, once your sanskaras are clean, your mind becomes pure. You become one with God. So what is to be done? Practice detaching the mind from the senses as much as you can. Get rid of your mobile habits, internet habits, television habits, reading book habit, and thousand kind of inputs that come through your five senses. Whenever you have no work to perform, if ever, when you have no duty to perform, just sit quietly, do nothing. Mind may be a henpecked husband, still it's a husband. Once in a while it can shout. Once in a while mind can shout at the senses. Mind can watch the working of the senses. And that makes it easier for the mind to get detached from the senses. Well, this is what Swamiji is saying. So he says, now let me read out what Swamiji says. Unless we join the mind with the senses, we get no report from eyes, nose, ears, etc. The external organs, like physical eyes, are used by the powers of the mind. Do not let the senses get outside, and then you can get rid of body and the external world. If the senses can be turned inward instead of going outward, then your body consciousness also will go away. This very X, which we see as an external world is this X factor. The departed see as heaven or hell according to their own mental states. Now, this is Swamiji saying because you don't come across this kind of statement anywhere else. But simply because this statement doesn't come anywhere else, doesn't mean that we can discount the words of Swamiji. Swamiji, being a sage, and his expansions being in consonance with the present world, this has to be the truth. There is only one world. This very world appears as physical, this very world appears as subtle, this very world appears as causal, and this very world, when mind becomes totally pure, becomes one with Atman. Because it is Atman all alone. The appearance is Maya. Pure consciousness, this Atman, is appearing as this pen. This is Maya. This is illusion. Because actually it's pure consciousness. Here and hereafter are two dreams. Here and hereafter are two dreams. The way you dream while living in this body, just like that you dream when you die. That's also a dream only. The latter model on the former. Those of you who might have read my book Kratu, you'll find there Vishwakarma is a divine architect. He's creating hell, and he tells Kratu that look, things have changed so much in the world that we have to create newer kind of hell, or the people who are doing certain kinds of action. It's a very interesting description of hell there. It's known as cosmic correction center. So here and hereafter are two dreams, the latter model on the former. Get rid of both. All is omnipresent. All is now. Heaven and hell. And Swamiji is talking to Christian disciples. Those who are craving for heaven, those who are craving, worrying about going to the hell, they all actually dream only. They are all state of mind. Mind is perceiving this very world in a different format. And because the format differs, at one time you see it as the physical world as we are seeing. At other time you see it as dream world. And once your body is gone, you see it as heaven or hell, combination of heaven and hell, etc. Nature, body, and mind go to death. Even mind goes to death. Manonash. Not we. We never go nor come. We, the Atman. We don't go anywhere. We don't go. Nothing. We are here. Just we have let we have created certain things and we have become attached to it. Those of you who might have read the famous Greek story Pygmalion. There, the artist creates a statue and falls in love with it. George Bernard Shaw later wrote his famous play, My Fair Lady. The name of the book is Pygmalion, but the name of the movie is My Fair Lady. You create something and then you fall in love with it. It's a very serious problem. God creates this world and God falls in love with this world. And that's why he keeps coming every now and then. It's his creation. We, the pure Atman, we have created the mind. We, the pure Atman, we have created the senses. And then keep watching the scene. Keep watching the scene. And we get fascinated. Sometimes we get scared. Combination of pleasure and pain. The man Swami Vivekananda is in nature, is born and dies, but the self which we see as Swami Vivekananda is never born, never dies. So there are two selves. One is the true one, who is neither born nor dies. There's the other one, is shadow. He's born, he dies. Sri Ramakrishna is God. God is never born. God never dies. Sri Ramakrishna, who appeared in nature, he was born and he went away in Mahasamadhi. The problem is that if you want to do spiritual sadhana, you need to get out of this notion of Sri Ramakrishna, the person. There are persons, personalities, and principles. You need to reach the level of the principle. God is completely impersonal. He's the real principle, means impersonal. God is neither born nor does he ever die. But his reflection is created, it stays and gets destroyed. Here I am, Swami Samarpanananda. There are two Samarpanananda. One was never born, who will never die. The shadow was created. Shadow will stay. And shadow will merge into nothingness. Shadow will keep moving. shadow will keep on behaving just like a living being. What are living beings? Mere shadows. The power of the mind is the same whether we divide it into five senses or whether we see only one. Like you have five pockets and you have some money. You can divide it into different pockets. In fact, my shirt has four pockets. And actually, when we go out, we are so scared of the pickpockets that we divide the money so that if one pocket goes away, the other one will remain. Something will be saved. So, working through five senses, the mind power gets divided. And now the neuroscience scientists have very clearly said maximum percentage of this brain mind power is taken away by the sight senses. A blind man says everything has a distinct echo, so I clap my hands and get that echo, and then I can tell everything that's around me. So in a fog, the blind man can safely lead the seeing man. Fog or darkness makes no difference to him. Obvious. Control the mind, cut off the senses. Then you are a yogi. How to be a yogi? Control your mind. Cut off the senses. First, the external senses. External senses are easier to control. Particularly the desire to eat and desire for sex. These two things can be curved if one wants. And from there one has to move further and go to five senses, which are much more powerful. Refuse to hear, to see, to smell, to taste. Take away the mental power from the external organs. Swamiji says you continually do it unconsciously as when your mind is absorbed. So you can learn to do it consciously. This is a very important statement. Sometimes when I go to some institutes, some schools, colleges, this question is often asked: how to focus, how to control the mind. I always reply: we all have perfect control over mind. When you are watching, say, a cricket match, when you are watching an extremely absorbing movie, all your other senses stop working. You are focused on your activity, provided it is absorbing. Your other senses stop working. Your mind becomes totally focused. You lose sense of time. You lose sense of space. So note that you have not experienced. We all experience it often. If you are not experiencing, if you have never experienced it, so you need to go to a psychiatrist. That means if you really cannot focus on anything, for example, a mad person, he cannot focus on these things. See, even a child who are notorious for their mischiefs, they get extremely absorbed with their toys. So the power of mind is very much there, extremely there, very much there. It is like the trailer, the real movie is yet to come. It is just a sample. The huge store lies somewhere else. We need to go and tap that store. The mind can put the senses where it pleases. Actually, it can. Get rid of the fundamental superstition that we are obliged to act through the body. Oh, now this is amazing thing. We have a superstition. Oh, I tell you, this is Inspire Talks book is simply phenomenal, and I feel sorry for the followers and devotees of the Ramakrishna mission, Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, who have not studied this book in depth. Because Swamiji has poured his heart out here. Says, body, actually, nature itself is a superstition. Body is second superstition. But worst superstition is that you can work only through this body. That means here I am sitting in Kolkata. Now, if I want to go to Delhi, I need this body. I need a train, a medium of transport, be it a car, a train, or a flight. And then only I can reach Delhi. Now, Swamiji said this is a superstition. If you want, you can go to Delhi. Your body will be lying here. We have many recorded instances of Sri Ramakrishna being at two places simultaneously. And in the famous work, Swami Vivekananda New Discoveries, there are at least one very clear instance of Swamiji himself doing it. Like he was meditating in his room, and the gentleman or the lady where he was staying, just for fun, locked the door. And it was time for his lecture. And oh no, it was a lady. And she goes and sees that Swamiji is delivering a talk. And she's shocked. How could Swamiji come out of the room? She opens the door and she finds Swamiji still meditating there. Goes back, sees, and then she was startled. Oh my God. Simultaneously at two places. In case of Sri Ramakrishna, we have quite a few instances when he was simultaneously at two places. And even when he was sick and ill, completely lying in the bed, unable to move, he was seen running down the stairs to drive away a deadly snake. Get rid of the fundamental superstition that we are obliged to act through the body. We are not. We are not obliged so. Now, this is coming from the authority of Swami Vivekananda, and you can feel the power of authority in each of these words. So, go into your own room and get the Upanishads out of your own self. Your own room, you're inside. You're studying the Upanishads, but you are the Upanishad. Why? How? What are Upanishads? They are the science and description of Atman, self-knowledge. And you are that. And that's why Swamiji says, you are the greatest book that ever was or ever will be. The infinite depository of all that is. You are the greatest book that was ever written. Think of the great poets like Kalidas, Rabindranath Tagore, and we had Shakespeare, Wordsworth. What were they writing? They're describing the beauty of this universe. What do the sacred books like Ramayana and Mahabharata do? They describe the finer aspects of this world. And what do the Upanishads describe? The majesty of the Atman, majesty of the soul. But you are that soul. You are that soul that has become this subtle universe, the world of the ideas. And you are that self, you are that Atman who has become this physical universe. What is this physical universe? You are that. Actually, you are that. These statements from Swamiji can be pretty unsettling. Get into your own room and get the Upanishads out of your own self. You will see that what you are reading within, it transcends all the experiences described in different scriptures. Now, this is the speciality of Hindu religion. Only Hindu religion says, only Hindu scriptures say that you can transcend the Vedas, which are the ultimate of sacred books. Think of Abrahamic religions; it will be such a great sacrilege, and they will immediately say, "Off with your head." Sacred books bind. The Upanishads talk of such heights, where kind of imagine yourself going in a high flying plane, maybe at 35,000 feet, 40,000 feet, and you are airdropped. Forget about your getting smashed, fear of getting smashed. First thing, first thing that you'll feel is you'll start panting for air. The Upanishads take you to such heights that you start panting for breath. No sacred book in this universe can take you to such heights. When Swamiji says, "You are the greatest book that was ever written or will ever be written," Swamiji is not translating from the Upanishads, but he is stating the obvious. Just stating the obvious. Until the inner teacher ever was and ever will be the infinite depository of all that is, until the inner teacher opens, all outside teaching is in vain. Now, that is something I have realized. That is something I can assure you. No, lots of things here, no, what we are discussing, what I am explaining, I may not have experienced directly, but one thing I have experienced, one thing I know for sure, that all these books, all these books are useless, completely useless, unless I experience even a bit of it. Experience a bit of it, and you realize that there's a qualitative change in your understanding. Until the inner teacher opens. It's the inner teacher that has to open. It must lead to the opening of the book of the heart to have any value. The beauty of these Upanishads, the beauty of these Vedas, it lies in opening your inner book and then you transcend them. So, does it mean that the Bible doesn't help in that? Yes, it does. Bible helps. Just that they don't say that you will transcend Bible, which is too obvious. You will. Now, we cannot name other religions, but it's obvious. Those who study engineering or management, when they read books, what happens? First, an idea enters their head. From there, that idea enters their heart. Their heart opens. And then this person becomes an engineer. When you get a degree from the university, you are not yet an engineer. You have a degree of engineering. It's only when your heart blooms to that knowledge that you become an engineer and a doctor. You may have a medical degree, but you're not a doctor. To be a doctor, your heart has to open. Just like that. The scriptures make your heart open up to spiritual truths. And that's when you realize, oh, these are all true. So, well, I mean, after that, it's not very difficult, but well, Swamiji says, Swamiji continues, oh, our time is up. So let's stop it here. We will take it up in the next talk. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.